Time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
Welcome back, college baseball fans. We are getting closer. I'm joined by Micah Butel and Nick Dioli. Mike is sending us a mixed message with the UVA jersey in the background and the Hokie bird on his head. But let's start with you, Micah. You look a little sad.
I'm just tired, Monty. I just woke up. I took a little power nap for about 45 minutes, but I'm good. Other than that, just got to wake up.
Okay. Interesting.
Hey, when you work in sports, this is the worst time of the year. You got softball starting this weekend. We're also building a baseball board from scratch. We got basketball this weekend. It's not fun in college athletics this time of year.
I think it's a blast.
I'm glad you're having fun, Monty. At least
yes. One sport. That's the key. that's the key. Although I'm pretty busy with my one sport, but that's all, I guess, voluntarily. Nick, how you doing?
Can't complain. Just working, and we're just getting closer to the day. I hope that this episode perches Micah's spirits because we're talking about his favorite team today. So that'll get you going, right, Micah?
Yeah, shots fired by Nick, by the way, when he said no complaints after Micah had said what was going on in his world. But
I don't like to complain, so sorry.
Micah has left, turned off his video, but and muted himself apparently, sadly. But let's.
My complaints are not going to be relevant to baseball because of my other job, so no one would really care.
Well, anyway, let's take a look at the key departures for the Virginia Tech Hokies. They are getting some love in some other outlets. Most notably, Perfect Game, I believe, had them in their top 40. But if you look, they lose some key pieces. DeMartini and Christian Martin are obviously two big losses. And then on the pitching side, Parliament, Griffin Green's not a huge loss since he didn't pitch at all for him last year, but he's going to contribute at Wake, so that's kind of hurt a little bit. But is there anybody that sticks out on this departure list, Nick, that kind of scares you for Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I think the one guy you didn't mention was Chris Cannizzaro. That's going to be a pretty big loss. Played close to 50 games, 10 extra base hits, 31 RBIs. He was kind of clutch for them. So I think that's another key piece that they'll be missing from last year's squad.
Mike, what about you? I mean, aside from the obvious maybe, but who are they going to miss the most?
I mean, the obvious is probably Carson DeMartini. I do think there's, an argument too for Wyatt Parliament, just because of, obviously we'll talk about the pitching staff and what they've run into this year. But I think that's a really tough loss. Some of the arms they lost in general. So we'll obviously miss Garrett Giebel. An OG of the page, we'll miss him. But overall, I mean, I think their departures are a lot more meaningful than I think I necessarily thought at first. Like, seeing it all listed out like this, Monty, just kind of reminds me, like, there's a lot of question marks about this team this year. Or at least a lot of individuals are going to have to fill some much needed roles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not low on Virginia Tech. I know I had them 13th, which is where I think the rankings ended up for them as a composite. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm super down on them. It's just so hard to rank our ACC teams because I am high. I was high on even like Notre Dame to an extent, and I have them 15th. So it's interesting trying to rank these teams. But yeah, they definitely got some question marks. But they bring in a ton of reinforcements, including David Lewis, who I was impressed with up in the Cape, Jared Davis, who impressed me in the fall, Trayson Hughes, who didn't have the best year at Ole Miss, but previous to that had a pretty good season there. But I mean, obviously you got to think about the pitching staff, and Micah, will stick with you. I mean, is there a pitcher that you think is really going to come in and step up for them?
I've heard good things about Cameron Lejeune from McNeese. Obviously, I don't know too much about him. I wasn't in the Southland at the time. Luke Crater was another name I actually am a little more familiar with. Saw him pitch against ETSU at Lafayette.
I was laughing at my own typo there. Lafitte. I just put yeet in there.
But I mean, I think they did a good job of, again, replacing some guys. Again, will it work? We'll see. But they did a good job of going out there. I know Matthew Curtis got some love as well last year at USC Upstate. I'm going to quickly touch on someone that when I saw him commit, I got excited. It wasn't pitching Monty, but I am a big fan of Jackson Cherry. He was really, really fun to watch at Mercer. He was a ETSU killer too. He can hit the cover off of a baseball. So I think he's a really good replacement for a Micheletti or a Cannizzaro. So I'm excited to see him for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I appreciate. Apologies for trying to pigeonhole you to just the pitcher, but thanks for keeping me honest. Yeah, Jackson Cherry, they got a number of outfielders. Plus, you'll see when we get to the lineup thing that Ben Watson's back, so they got a lot of options in the outfield. But Nick, is there any pitcher or if you want to go the same route, a hitter that really catches your eye with the newcomers?
I mean, anybody that comes out of JUCO is always kind of high on my list personally. I feel like JUCO guys always just take advantage of the new opportunities that they have. But I'll go with David Lewis out of D2 North Greenville. I think that's sneaky really good. So we'll see about that. One thing I did want to say real quick about the key departures, the guys that we just mentioned, not even your list, Monty, but Carson, Christian, Chris, Wyatt. It seems like the drop off, after those guys, the drop off is quite significant. These were the guys that we talked about on Virginia Tech a lot, besides probably Ben Watson, but
and Micheletti as well. Micheletti was you would add to that list as well. Very, very significant at bats.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to see a lot of new faces on this team kind of step up, because after those guys, I mean, I think they carried the team a lot, and the drop off was pretty big, in my opinion.
Love to see it. Did you want to highlight anyone else?
No, I was good.
All right. Let's take a look at that rotation options. Obviously, Virginia Tech has had some major pitching woes in the past. They do return their ace in Brett Renfro. They also return Madden Clement, who I wrote about and saw, and he has taken some major steps forward. I think he's going to have a breakout sophomore year. And then you've got some of these transfers that'll be in the option for the rotation. Do you guys feel like they've done enough to improve? Because obviously you're expecting Brett Renfro to take steps forward as a sophomore. Madden Clement seems to have taken steps forward. Could this be a better rotation than last year, even though Griffin Stieg is obviously out for the year? He was a big, important piece of their rotation. Or do you feel good about the rotation, but more concerned about the bullpen?
I mean, I don't feel overly concerned about the rotation, but I mean, losing Griffin Stieg, I think, is tough, because if you had him right now, you'd feel really good, I think, about the rotation, because obviously you can then move one of these or two of these arms really into the bullpen as a long reliever kind of situation, where now you're going to have two people really step up to kind of fill a role that, again, right, we're talking about a loaded conference. So, again, it's not that this team's not capable of special things, but you've got teams that have pretty firm 1, 2, sometimes even 3 guys. And obviously you got one you're really confident in. And obviously, I mean, there's a Madden Clement or some of these transfers you can talk about. But, I mean, I think the bullpen is a bigger question mark. But at the same time, I'm not overly sold on the starters either.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more confident in the starters just because of I do believe Clement's going to be up there and have a really good year. So I feel like that gives them a better 1-2 than I think they've had in a while. But you're right, the Griffin Stieg one hurts, because then you would have basically your weekend rotation kind of firmed up. It's brutal that he has that sophomore breakout year for them, and then on the last weekend of the year against Virginia has that injury. That's going to keep him out for the entire year, which is rough. But Nick, talk to me about this rotation and how you're feeling about it.
I mean, obviously Brett's going to be your guy, but other than that, I'm not too sold on the rotation this year. They're going to have to kind of prove themselves. I kind of felt like Wyatt and the others were kind of, I don't know, they proved themselves, and they all had a decent year, but last year's team didn't go far. They started off really hot, but we all know kind of why. They started off with bad teams in the conference. and they're going to have to prove themselves. I'm not overly sold on the rest of the rotation besides Brett at the moment.
So I'm not I don't necessarily agree with the scheduling thing being the reason they were starting off hot and versus failing down the stretch. I think things started to stack up at the same time the schedule got harder, because I believe they were a tournament caliber team, but they just could not pull out of the tailspin. Once the losses started stacking up, I didn't feel like they could pull out of it, and I think that was the difference. But yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, with their pitching staff, they've got to go out and prove it, and they haven't necessarily done that in the last couple of years. Obviously, last year when they were doing well, the pitching was up there. But let's take a look at the rest of these arms. They bring back Sentlinger, Exum, Kurtner, Crowell, Manning, Jackman. And they bring in a number of transfers. Obviously, a couple of the guys from the rotation options are going to be back there as well. But you're expecting some development, I think, from a lot of these arms. I mean, Kurtner had a pretty good year, but he's probably your best reliever, and I think he had a 4.48 ERA or something like that. So it's going to be interesting. You're going to have to expect a lot. I did see a lot that I liked in the fall, but it was a scrimmage against Virginia Commonwealth where that's not always indicative of how the season's going to go. It just gives me a chance to look at some of the arms. But I came away more impressed than I thought I'd be with the pitching, but that again doesn't necessarily correlate because I saw a very small sample size in October against a team that's in transition in VCU and a much smaller program as well. So obviously you feel a little bit stronger about the rotation than you do the bullpen, right, Micah?
Yeah, I mean you do, but I do like Jacob Exman a lot. I think he's obviously a kind of a core anchor piece. If he can replicate, he can build off of last season, he'll be one of the better relievers in the conference. If he can kind of just do what he did last year, he'll still be a very reliable source for them out of the bullpen.
He's got if I recall correctly, he's got a very low slot.
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
And it's a lot of questions though, because you've got, a lot of these are returners. You got Grant Manning, who's a returner. You've got Preston Crowell, that's a returner. Brady Kurtner is a returner. If they can take a step forward, they invested in a pitching lab at Virginia Tech. That's something I give the athletic department there a lot of credit. They put a lot of money into baseball over the last few years. So hopefully it pays off for them because, they're a program that, we're 3 years removed from them hosting a super.
Yeah.
So
2022.
Yeah. So obviously this is a program that has known success. I still to this day swear by it. It's one of the better environments when they're good because of how they lay out that ballpark. So I think it's something that if they can get the relievers to just kind of elevate a little bit. That was kind of the problem last year. Remember the ACC game we were at, the tournament game with Duke, where they kind of jump out a little bit and you're thinking, oh my goodness, are they about to do it? And then, literally, like you said, they could not stop the spiral. Once it started, once the door opened, they could not close it.
Yeah, there was a certain extent. I don't necessarily want to. This might get taken the wrong way, but it almost seemed like a little bit mental. It was hard to, I don't want to question their mentality because I know they all were competitive and wanted to win, but it's almost like, oh, here we go again, and then it just kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yeah, it's the beauty and the negative of baseball. It is a lot of mental side of things too. Sometimes the best teams just hit a rut, and obviously flip side, right? So it's I don't think they're going to do what they did last year. I really don't think they're going to have as much struggles as they did. And they're going to have struggles throughout the season. Every team does, but I don't think it's going to. You genuinely could not trust Virginia Tech's bullpen last year. I remember watching that Virginia Tech series. Every time I felt a little bit scared about Virginia, I remembered, oh yeah, Virginia Tech has no bullpen.
Especially at that point of the year. They're just run down towards the end there. And it was just interesting because it's, it'll be interesting to see because it's kind of happened in the last 2 years. I thought their pitching was better last year than it was in 2023, but they're still not where they need to be. Nick, again, I imagine you're going to kind of bang the same drum you've been banging here with they need to prove it, but let's get your thoughts a little bit here on the bullpen.
Yeah, so first, a lot of righties, which is kind of cool, but you're not going to show a lot of other stuff with a whole bunch of right-handers. But yeah, I'll just build off what you guys said. There were a lot of games last year where the bullpen kind of gave it up. I think the spiral kind of started. Actually, a game that Micah went to was the Wake game the Wake series. That's kind of when
that's exactly the turning point that everything kind of fell apart.
That was the turning point. And I believe Wake swept them, right? Micah,
Yep.
was that right? Yeah.
Swept them. Nick Kurtz hit like 8,000 home runs.
That was the beginning of
the weekend that got Seaver going a little bit too for them.
Yeah, that was the beginning of Kurtz hitting 14 home runs in 10 games.
Yeah, so I mean, you could look back at that, the Virginia series Micah talked about. Hell, you could even talk about this game didn't really matter for them, but the NC State Virginia Tech game in the ACC tournament. I mean, State just went golfing on these guys. So they're gonna have to. Yeah, I'll just say it. They'll have to prove themselves.
Yeah, that post game interview was pretty brutal. With John Sheff after that, because somebody asked him what's gone wrong over the last week between Virginia and this, and he was like, I can't even tell you what's gone wrong the last 6 weeks. It was brutal because he was just completely out of answers because it didn't matter who he put out there, they weren't quite doing what they needed to do, and that was obviously had taken its toll. But I do want to point out, I mean, they're going to use some freshmen. I was impressed with the freshmen that came out in the fall. Marcel Kulik in particular, he's their highest recruited freshman, I think. These guys are going to have to grow up fast and contribute, because again, we've seen it. They're going to give guys opportunities, and it's just a matter of who is able to take advantage. Where do you guys, this is our 15th team, where would you guys rank this staff as a whole amongst the ACC?
Near the bottom.
Completely at the bottom?
I haven't listed out my pitching rankings, so
That's
I don't
true. I'm probably the only one that has because
I haven't gone that far, Monty. I mean, I can. That'll be a fun exercise to do here in the next couple of days. But I would probably put it, if I just hit it off the top of my head, I think I trust it more than Cal. I think I trust it more than Notre Dame. I think, and that one's even kind of questionable. I think I trust them more than Pitt, but I think Pitt might have more upside.
Renfro does a lot of heavy lifting.
That's the thing is this is awful to say, right? You never want to think this way, but you really do feel like if anything happens to him, you feel very lost.
It's interesting talking about all the sophomores, pitchers, and everyone that's coming. You talk about Canuck, and you talk about DeCaro, and you even talk about Folger Boaz coming back, but Brett Renfro's really kind of gone under the radar a bit. Do you think he's underrated?
Oh yeah, 100%. He might be a top 10 starter. Yeah, probably, right, in the ACC.
I would think so, yeah.
The reason why I preface that is because teams like Stanford have three guys that could legitimately make an argument that they're better than. I think you could make an argument that Joey Volchko has the ability to be better than Brett Renfro and have the ability to make Malik. So, you've got teams with multiple guys, but, I might take Brent Renfro over Evan Blanco, honestly. He's that good. Obviously that was our last show, was Virginia yesterday. So, he's definitely up there. But then again, if Griffin Stieg is in this rotation, I think it really does. This probably goes from 10th, 11th on the list to top 7, but obviously sports are a cruel thing sometimes. So.
I will say, so obviously I didn't rank the pitching staff as a whole. I had it split between the rotation and bullpen. I had Virginia Tech 12th with the rotation and 15th with the bullpen. California is 16th in both those categories for me. Yeah. So, but the other teams you mentioned, Notre Dame, I think it would be, you could argue ahead of Notre Dame, but the more I look at Notre Dame, sometimes I think their bullpen's better than I'm giving it credit for.
I think Notre Dame has more answers overall. I think my thing with Virginia Tech is we have a lot of guys that have reps, right? Again, we're looking at, Grant Manning made 15 appearances or 15 plus. Preston Coral made 15 appearances. Brady Kirtner made 20 some appearances. Jacob Exum made almost 20 appearances. We've seen them, and they were not very good. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great. So it's do we think they've maxed out their talent? Or are they going to take another step forward? If they're taking another step forward, this could be a pretty good bullpen.
Yep.
But again, there's a lot of question marks because the numbers don't necessarily say that. And again, they were very similar to Louisville last year from the standpoint of one outing you had the good version of the guy, and the next outing he literally couldn't get an out if his life depended on it. It's just in this conference with how good the lineups are, you can't afford that.
Yep. Nick, do you have anything you wanted to say before we moved on to the to looking at the well, we can bring up the roles, and if you want to add to this a little bit, that's kind of how I kind of pictured it coming out. You might want to have Yagesh in the bullpen just because they don't have a ton of lefties unless you go with some freshmen like Marciano and Cohen. But there's Cam Lejeune. He's probably, you probably don't want to necessarily use him as a midweek guy because he's a strong guy. But Nick, what are your thoughts here on the pitching staff and the bullpen as a whole as we talk about where they stand amongst the ACC?
Yeah. Well, first I'll just kind of back up what Micah was saying about Brett. I think he is underrated. I think he flies under the radar, and we all know he's really good. I just think it's the surrounding cast, being picked bottom-ish of the ACC as a team, I think just doesn't do him justice. But he has a chance to be a top 10, hopefully creep in a top 5 pitcher in the ACC. So we'll see. But I think your rankings, Monty, are actually pretty accurate. I see this rotation. They have a potential to be up in the top 10 in the ACC. But again, there's a lot of question marks in this bullpen with dudes who have a very high ERA from last season. And again, they just got to prove it. I don't really have a whole lot of positive coming out of the bullpen this year. They're going to have to, again, prove it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the case until they do prove it and bring in some studs. But I'm looking forward to seeing how it always unfolds here because, similar to Georgia Tech, I think Virginia Tech is a pretty entertaining team to watch because of some of the, you've got the high octane offense with the unpredictable pitching staff, which can create some pretty fun games, if albeit long ones and frustrating situations. But, they're never a dull moment in Blacksburg. Now let's talk about this offense. I know Micah mentioned seeing the list of departures kind of concerned him a bit, but you got to remember that there is a guy coming back at first base, a big bat coming back at first base that missed most of last year.
Michel.
Yeah. I love that meme so much. My home run consigliere, Michel. I like Cook is good. McCann, did you guys see what he did in the fall against Liberty? He hit a cycle of home runs, basically. He hit one to right field, center field, and left field.
And he looked good down the stretch, too, at the end of the year last year. He was someone that was kind of starting to come on a little bit. So definitely excited to see him. I know, Monty, you haven't gotten to the outfield yet, but I think that's probably the unit I'm most excited for this team, though. But obviously, we're just going to keep this on the infield. The return of Garrett, that's what stinks is you get Garrett Michel back and you're excited for that. But again, he goes back to the pitching thing. If Griffin Steig's healthy, this team feels so much different. But at least you've got your guy back at first. I think Sam Tackett has an argument too, right? He's probably still going to be in the lineup somewhere.
Yeah, they really believe in him.
You have a good backup option if Michel needs some rest. They did a good job in the portal grabbing outfielders too, so they can move because obviously I'm assuming you have Sam Tackett somewhere out in outfield. But overall, again, you've got 2 catchers I think you feel pretty good about. You obviously are really excited to have Garrett Michel back. So Clay Grady too. Let's not forget about him. He had a very good year last year, hitting 330 something. So he's someone that I think you'd be excited about.
He's probably their highest draft prospect as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So I think he's a bit underrated. I saw D1 had him really low, and I was like, I don't know what they're looking at, but
David Lewis, he's the D2 transfer, right, from North Greenville.
Yeah. And before that, Clemson.
Yeah, I know he was getting a lot of love. When
he looked good.
Yeah,
in the Cape, he looked good. I think they're still going to hit. Jared Davis, by the way, I was expecting second base to pretty much be given to Ethan Gibson. And then in the fall, I was like, who's this guy? And he is quite good. And they're going to run a lot more, I think, than they have in years past. But I think they're still going to hit. I think they're still going to be an explosive offense. We talk about those 2 catchers. I think I actually have their catching group ranked as the number 3 catching group in the conference with Henry Cook and David McCann. it's a good lineup. I think it's a strong one. It's not necessarily super deep, but I'll throw up the outfield there. I mean, it gets much deeper when you include the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Jackson Cherry. He can hit. He's sound defensively. Ben Watson, like you said, someone they're definitely excited to have back this year. Again, this is a team that I think you should be excited about from it. Like, I am surprised there are some people that are so high on them because, again, you have to assume they're going to hit, like, not literally like hit the ball, but like, actually like mesh and have success the way you think they're capable of. But I mean, this lineup is a top half of the ACC lineup if all things go right.
Can we talk? I know people know this, but Ben Watson's the reigning ACC batting title champ. 419 coming from the D3 level. Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't have any problem adjusting to.
I actually kind of felt bad for him because everyone talked about Jacob Ferencz as like the best D3, and don't get me wrong, Jacob Ferencz was really, really good, but like Ben Watson's over here just like, hi guys.
Yeah, like
I'm right here.
I wrote his name down a lot last year.
Yeah.
A lot.
Did you just write his first name down, Nick, or did you write his last name down too?
Just Ben.
What?
Just Ben.
Nothing. Oh. It's a joke. It's just a joke. Having fun with you.
But yeah, McCann and Cook and Jackson Cherry, to an extent, they're going to be guys that are going to have to fill the power vacuum. Obviously, Garrett Michelle's going to rake and hit home runs, but you're going to see guys steal bases because Jared Davis is going to steal some bases. Cam Pittman, if he gets in playing time. It's going to be really interesting to see. I'm excited about this lineup. And like you said, I think it is a top half of the ACC lineup. Again, it's just the theme of the last couple of years for them has been the pitching staff.
Yeah, we haven't really questioned the offense in the last few years.
Yeah, but it's just funny when you were like, I'm looking at the names stacked up. I was like, yeah, but somehow they reloaded pretty well offensively.
Yeah.
So, Nick, what are your thoughts?
I think this is going to be a sneaky, pretty good lineup. I mean, look at these guys. They got a lot of experience. They're all juniors and seniors. I think this team can hit for power. This could be a very sneaky good lineup in the ACC. I think it has the potential to be top half for sure.
Yeah, pretty much besides McCann, I think all your starters are going to be juniors or seniors. So that's pretty big. I mean, Ethan Gibson will get playing time as a sophomore as well, but I don't expect him to be in the starting nine. Looking at the way the lineup goes out, I mean, it's a pretty balanced lineup here. Jackson Cherry is probably batting way too low. But trying to figure out a balanced lineup, you probably don't have to go righty lefty. And I think when I was trying to project this together, that's what I was focused on. When it made more sense maybe to have Jared Davis serving as like a second leadoff man to turn the lineup over in the 9-hole. But I really like the way this lineup is coming together. And you still have some quality bench pieces in Gibson, Pittman, and Tackett and Slade and Licurdo. It's a deeper offense, and I think if you didn't know what they had picked up and who they brought back, you wouldn't have thought that they had that much coming back and being part of their offense.
Absolutely. Nailed it, Monty.
Yeah.
Micah, where would you bat Jackson Cherry, since I'm clearly wrong and that batting him ninth is not the best place to put him?
I mean, I don't actually hate that at 9 because he is a turn the lineup kind of guy. I mean, have that much power at the 9 spot's not the worst thing in the world to have, but he's probably like a 6 or a 7, kind of guy. I mean, I don't know if he can be above David McCann, probably, maybe, but like, obviously, I'm definitely in agreement on your 1 through 4. From there, I think you can kind of plug and play based off what makes sense. Maybe you throw Cherry at the 5 for the lefty, and then maybe McCann falls to 7 and you almost push everybody back a spot or something. But I mean, overall, this is, again, you nailed it, Monty. Like, is it the best lineup in the ACC? No, it's not. Unfortunately, not even the best lineup in the ACC in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Right. But it's a very good lineup.
Yeah. It's not an easy one to go through. And it's just funny because projecting lineups is not super easy without being able to talk to coaches as much. I mean, obviously with some teams, I was able to see some things. Like with Duke, it was a little bit easier to see some things because I saw them like 4 times in the fall. So you could kind of start to see the pattern that they were thinking. Mm-hmm. But I only saw Virginia Tech once. So it's harder to tell. So I might get a little bit too enamored with the lefty righty like balance. So if there's a flaw in my projections on a consistent basis, it's probably that. But I still think this lineup.
Or you can call 1-800 Monty sucks.
There you go. Somebody will answer. Nick,
It'll be Nick.
Yeah, Nick will answer.
It actually directs you straight to the Dioli's.
You have to order a sandwich.
Yeah. I think it's very top half heavy. I like, Jackson Cherry down there is very interesting. I think I'm kind of in agreement with Micah. He will probably be up more in the lineup. But 1 through 4, it's going to be a little bit of a battle for even a lot of the top ACC pitchers around the league. So I kind of like where Virginia Tech is right now with the lineup, and I feel a little bit better about them now that we've kind of dove into them and figured things out. I think some people that might be listening or watching probably feel the same. I think this is a sneaky good lineup.
Yeah, and all you got to do is have some of those bullpen guys and rotation options develop or be a little bit or be as good as you expect, in terms of the transfers, and all of a sudden this is a tournament team, So it's interesting because we've been kind of negative on the pitching, but it doesn't take much for that to that narrative to change to prove what they're doing to you, Nick. As you said earlier, that until they prove it, but it doesn't necessarily take much to do that.
Right.
All right, Micah, we gotta get the look at the graphic here. Orange is home.
Wait, what? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's better. I like it. I'm just sad that I wonder if ETSU is actually going to get to host Virginia Tech, because the one time we were supposed to host them, they canceled on us because of the weather. So it'd be cool to. I'm sad I could have had 2 ACC teams, Monty, come to my humble abode, but this schedule, like, there's a midweek here that when I saw it, Monty, got me so excited because I just didn't expect it to happen. Can you guess what it was?
Troy.
Wow. Yeah, it's actually a lot easier than you probably thought because there's a lot of them are more consistent teams. But yes, Troy in the midweek got me really, really excited. Like, that's just, I don't know where Troy must be going to, like, Marshall or something that week, or coming back from Marshall or App or something for them to be coming there just for a Tuesday. But really, really like that one. I'd love that Jackson Cherry gets to play his old team in late May in Blacksburg. But
yeah, that'll be exam week or something.
Yeah, it's got to be. But I mean, this schedule really isn't all that bad. I think it'll be good for them to do that. The LeClaire Classic at ECU with Army, Indiana. Like, that's literally 3 NCAA tournament teams you're going to be facing.
Yep, and ECU
ISU did make the tournament last year, right? I'm not missing on that.
What?
Indiana State, they made it last year. I know
they made it. They did.
Yeah,
they
did.
Made it. Yeah, because there was a joke.
They were in the Vandy regional, right?
There was a joke that they might get a chance to host a super regional again, but they still got the same.
Right.
They still had the Special Olympics, so that's how I remember that they still had it. Because
right.
it would have been funny if it happened 2 years in a row. All right. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about their ACC schedule? By the way, Troy is going to be at Old Dominion. That's why they are. I guess they're making. I mean, that's not that close to Blacksburg, but it's in the area.
This schedule's really not. I mean, it's not. I would say it's pretty. What's the word? It's mild for the ACC, I guess, because you got some of the top end teams. You also got some of the bottom end teams. I think having those toss ups, like, you got Georgia Tech, Louisville teams that I think you would say are probably in similar categories to you at home, so that's nice. It's not too brutal of a schedule. So overall, I mean, it's not obviously a cakewalk, but it's really hard to get a cakewalk in the ACC this year. So I mean, I don't think it's definitely like a winning season, a NCAA tournament resume is achievable and doable with this schedule.
Yeah, and there is a midweek that I'm particularly excited about.
I mean, VCU, I guess.
Yes, because they come to me. It says Blacksburg, but it's in Richmond. I don't know. Oh,
no, there's one of
there
each.
it is. There it is. That's right. It's a home and away. So the one where they come to Richmond is the one I'm obviously excited about. Nick, what are your thoughts on this schedule before we talk about where we see this Virginia Tech team ending up?
I think Micah hit the nail on the head where
all right, good talk.
Micah always is right.
Jeez.
Thank you, Nick.
You're not always right, trust me. I think it's definitely mild, but this is definitely a schedule where if things click, they can make the NCAA tournament. It's not too deep. You said Red is home, so they get North Carolina at home. They get Florida State at home.
Orange is home. Orange is home.
Or Orange, yeah. Sorry. Their toughest road trip is probably going to be NC State, probably Wake as well, maybe. But it's a favorable schedule. They don't have to go out west. They don't have to play any of the Stanford or Cal in this schedule. And their out of conference is pretty nice, and they can take advantage of it. They can beat UNCG, who is a high RPI team year in and year out. They got 3 other NCAA caliber teams in there that they could take advantage of. I kind of like it. It's a favorable schedule if things click right.
Love that. So, hello. Hi, guys. So, let's wrap this up here as we, kind of complete our preview here on Virginia Tech. We kind of have alluded to what their ceiling could be. We've obviously talked about what their floor can be, but what do we think is actually going to happen? Let's start with you, Micah. Do you think they're going to be an NCAA tournament team?
No, I don't. I think they're
You think they'll be on the bubble?
Yeah, I think, again, I had them, 13, I think, in my power rankings, or 12. So they're kind of right there on that edge where, and again, after our Pitt conversation, I'm feeling a little bit better about Pitt. And again, there's just so much unknown, and this is not fair to do to Virginia Tech, but it feels like they have been kind of poisoned or bitten by the injury bug in key situations almost every year over the last few years. And I'm always just afraid because of the lack of depth already they have on the pitching side. And again, the offense, you said it, they have some really good guys, but you're not sure about the depth. You're not sure if it's going to work. And again, their schedule is not brutal, but it's also not a cakewalk. They're not going to have the same ability this year because of that LeClaire Classic to just kind of roll in non-conference play and hopefully build some confidence. So they're going to be right there. I mean, obviously, the ACC tournament format, they're going to have plenty of chances, but I just don't know if it's going to be there or not. I mean, I know I'm a Virginia guy. I know you joke, Monty, that I love Virginia Tech and yada yada, but I really do want to see this program get back to the tournament because the investment that the athletic department has made into this program makes me want to see. I want to see them reap the benefit of their investment, because if they don't, it's going to hinder other programs from ever investing the same way. And they've put a lot of money into baseball in the last 5 years, so I really would like to see them return to at least the tournament.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about this joke you're alluding to. I don't typically make jokes. I'm a very serious human being. Nick.
Yeah, it's not like you were a big meme guy or something on social media. You would never make a meme or anything, right? Never.
I'm not that creative.
There was no Garrick Ebel meme ever made by Montgomery.
So, fun fact, you're getting me confused with this is not.
That's true. Joke. Actually, you didn't make that one. Alex did. That's right.
Thank you. I was trying to remember Alex's handle.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So Alex also has a fantastic meme that I have taken that I will probably use on the tweet at some point. Is the Madden Clement meme that he's got where it's EA Sports, it's in the game, and it's Madden Clement on the cover. That's him as well. If you guys ever see that meme, very good Virginia Tech fan. Anyway, Nick, go ahead and give me what you think Virginia Tech's going to do.
Monty, you take your job very seriously, and I kind of agree with you. Yeah, I don't know what Mike is talking about. Yeah, no worries.
Appreciate that.
Pretty much, I think they're on the outside looking in at the NCAA tournament. I think, again, they got a lot of things to prove in the bullpen. I think they have a good lineup, but I think they're going to be a team that we're talking about all year. That's bubble. That's all right. If Virginia Tech can win this series, then they're probably in. That RPI will go up. we're going to be, I think this is the team we are going to be looking at week in and week out. Like, okay, this is who Virginia Tech has. They need to do this to stay on the bubble, or they need to do this to kind of, have a clear path to the NCAA tournament. They're just that kind of team I think we're going to have all year.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how it all unfolds. Again, there's so much unknown. We can talk it to death, and we have to an extent. By the time we finish these team previews, we'll have like 10 to 12 hours worth of us just talking about the season. There's only so much we can do, but that's going to do it for Virginia Tech. We do have our final team preview coming tomorrow night with the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. But until then, it just means